Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel, Augusto Argandoña Fine Arts. Anytime in the course of this narrated tutorial, you can click on the subscribe button to subscribe to my channel. And if you should want to learn about my virtual classes or want to see my other paintings, you can do so on my website at aafinearts.com. This tutorial is about how to paint stormy sky with watercolors. This is particular scene is a country farm type location, could be anywhere in the Midwest and the Northeast, areas like that. And for that matter, it could be some places, some areas in Canada. But I'm going to paint it with a fairly limited palette, but the sky is going to be very, very stormy. So without much ado, let me go ahead and start. I'm going to begin by adding quite a bit of water to the sky area. Like that. Bringing all the way to where the buildings are. But I'm not going to miss those areas. I'm making sure that the sky is pretty much saturated. I'm leaning over the paper. I can see that some areas are not covered, so I'm go ahead and do this again like that. And so now I'm going to bring in some ultramarine blue and probably some burnt umber. Mix that. Fairly strong color. Also going to bring in some ultramarine and burnt sienna. Mix that in my palette. Like that. Also going to mix the burnt sienna with Payne's Gray. And lastly, I'm going to make a mixture of sepia and cobalt blue. Maybe some ultramarine blue into it too. That's probably what I will do. Mostly ultramarine blue. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and re-wet the area because this paper was drying fairly quickly. Like that, I'm going to blot out the lower areas. And with a wide round brush, I'm going to start adding the colors of this is angry sky. And excuse my hand there. So I'm going to start over here, like that. Like that. Bring a little bit of the burnt sienna into it. To give a little bit more variety to that gray. Like that. And bring some of that gray over here too. Also going to bring in some cerulean blue. A little bit of cerulean blue, not too much. And cobalt blue to this area. And then I'm going to tilt the paper like that. I'm going to start darkening some of these areas because it's going to dry much lighter. So I'm using cobalt blue and sepia. Okay, now I'm gonna have to let it go that way. A little bit more of ultramarine blue and sepia in this area here. Leave that little bit of the white there like that. And in my brush, I bring a little bit of the cobalt blue with the sepia much lighter, and come over here and just barely touch some of those areas, and let the rest of the watery colors move into this area here like that. There. Okay, now I'm gonna let it down. Let it dry. I'm gonna tilt the paper one more time, because that impending rain is about to happen. So I'm gonna just, okay, now I'm gonna let it dry like one more time. Okay, now I'm gonna let it dry like that. Now at this point, I don't touch the sky at all, because whether it's pigment or water, it would just completely ruin it. Right now, there's a little bit of a clearing still in the sky over here. The clouds are moving in for the storm. You know, it's indications here that in some areas it's just beginning to rain. So I'm gonna just leave it like that. It's beautiful. So while that's drying, I will start with the foreground. First, I'm gonna clean my palette because I don't need these colors. I thought I was gonna use some of the colors too, but some of these colors were a little bit on the green side, and that would not look good on the sky. So now I'm gonna get my flat brush, and I'm gonna do the road. I'm gonna add a little bit of water here. The colors on the ground are gonna reflect the mood of the day, the mood of the time. So I'm going to use a little bit of burnt umber and sepia. And maybe a little bit of raw sienna, raw umber actually, and sepia, that would be better. And while this is still damp, I'm going to do some strokes like that in the direction of the perspective. Like that. Come over here. Like that. A little bit more sepia. Just quick, decisive strokes. Like that. Bring some ultramarine blue into that mixture. Make it more of a gray. There we are. Come on, I'll let that dry. That's my base color. Also gonna add some water to this area. Not too much. And I bring some of the color of the dry residue of the corn that was harvested. A little bit of raw umber and sepia there, a little darker, with some ultramarine blue also. that. And bring some yellow ochre into that mixture. And do these strokes with the following the direction of the rows of the cornfield, like that. A little bit more sepia, some areas. And that. Now, clean my brush. I'm going to bring a little bit more of the yellow ochre. Come over here on this edge of the road. Like that. Use some burnt umber also for some of the corn that's still the the residue of the harvest. A bit more sepia there. Some of these muddy colors over here. Nothing here is like a garden. Farm fields are kind of rough looking, so just do that. That's what I'm using my fingernail and my thumb finger to get some of that texture. Like that. All right. Before that dries, I'm also going to use some aureolin yellow, a little bit of cerulean blue, and a little bit of undersea green. There's some vestiges of green, that's grasses, right down by the road. That some in the field too. After the harvest, there's the little plants, little weeds and so forth that grow there, so that's why I'm doing that. Bring some of the sepia almost with a dry brush. Give a little bit more of a muddy look to the field, like that there. And that's enough for that. On this other side, I'm going to do the same. I'm going to add some water. Go over that fence, over the tree. Bring some of the yellow ochre. Like that. I'll bring a little bit of that green. The same thing on the edge of the road. And right by the fence. And some of the sepia. Give the roughness also with my finger. There. And that's pretty much done. So now this road is almost dry, so I'm going to bring some sepia, a little bit of burnt umber to this edge before it dries completely. Like that. A little bit over here. There. Like that. Okay. I'm going to let that dry. My road is still kind of damp, so I'm not going to do anything there right now. So the sky is also beginning to dry really nicely. So I'm going to take a smaller brush, round brush, mix a little bit of the raw sienna, raw umber, add a little bit of undersea green. Give it a little bit of little touch of green, and with that, I'm also gonna add a little bit of water to this trees into the distance, like that, and onto that wet area, I'm gonna add some of this color. Okay, also bring some Payne's gray to that mixture. Like that. I'll let that dry. Clean my brush. That sky is almost dry there. So I will be able to, without any problems, I'm gonna add some water here. Like that. And we're getting the same colors. This time a little bit cooler. Also a little bit lighter. Let's get some of that raw umber. Blocking out the areas where these buildings are. There, like that. There. Now I'm going to bring in a little bit of sepia into that mixture. And come down over here, it's going to be much lighter. Because this is more into the distance. Like that. A little bit of that green. Give it a little bit of a color to those trees into the distance. Like that. And do the same over here. Give it a bit more of a distance look. Oh, there was a chimney there, but that's all right. A little bit of the green with the sepia. These are much lighter because this is in the distance. Like that. Bring this over here. Okay. So I'm gonna let that dry. While that's drying, this is almost dry, so I'm gonna go back to my flat brush, pick up some sepia and ultramarine, dark gray, and do some of the rough, the tracks and so forth on this road. Like that. we are. A little bit more over here. The strokes in the opposite direction, but going with the perspective. There we are. Now I'm going to take a smaller brown brush and get some of the brown matter and sepia, make a kind of a reddish brown. And I'm going to do this barn here. There, like that. A bit more water, a little bit more of the brown matter. There we are. I'm going to get a little bit of the sepia, ultramarine blue mixed there. Darken some of the areas closer to the roof. And this wall. This wall is going to be much darker. There we are. And we'll give it a little bit of, just a light indication of some boards. Because of the distance, you're not going to see that too much. And so that's pretty much it. I'm going to do the same thing with this building. That wall is going to be dark. And the opposite, the wall in front is going to be lighter. There we are. And the little building will do the same. Leave a little bit of the white there, and then make the other wall darker. Like that. Now with some sepia and the colors that I have in my palette, I'm going to do some areas close to the base of this barn buildings, all kinds of farm paraphernalia. Like that. Because of the distance, you can't see too much there, but that's, we'll leave it like that. With some ultramarine, make a dark gray, put a window over here. There, like that. A little bit more defined. Put a door, a window over here. There. A door and a couple of windows here. There. And then the roof gonna be a kind of metal type, cobalt blue, a little bit of the sepia, make kind of a gray. Because of the amount of sun, light reflected from the sky, I'm going to leave this pretty much almost white, like that. However, the other one will be darker, but lighter than the walls. So there we are. And then the little house there, I'm going to use a smaller round brush. Get some of that gray that's already in my palette, And this wall, just like this, the walls and over here, it's going to be lighter because of the light from the sky. This is going to be a little darker over there. This little porch over here is going to be a little darker. Leave a little bit of white for that post. The roof, get some cobalt blue and the gray. We'll give it a gray roof here. This is going to be a little gray. There, like that. And then get some ultramarine and the gray that I have in my palette. And do these windows. A door there and a window. And that's the farmhouse. So now also I'm going to get some of the sepia with this gray color that I have in my palette. Add some cerulean blue to it. And do some of these trees. This tree is coming over here. A little darker. A bit more water in my brush. There we are. This tree is going to be right in front of this fence. Need a little bit more water in my brush. Like that. It's a little bit of the brown tone. And we'll do these branches. Some other younger trees coming out of the base. A few darker branches. Now, get a little bit more of the brownish tone. Put another tree over here. Another one over here. Almost in front of the house. Done. One here, a little bigger tree. That. And we'll put another tree over here. Down there. And for good measure, we're gonna add a couple of the trees too. Put one over here. I don't like to do things in pairs all the time, although they have 4 buildings here, but this is almost just one building. There we are. And maybe one smaller one over here. There we are. Now I'm going to take my smaller brush that I've been using, slightly wet it, get all these gray tones that I have here. Get some of that raw umber mixed with this sepia, get a tone of a gray tone. And with the edge, I'm going to do some of the dry remaining leaves that are on the branches, like that. A little bit more of the umber. Like that. A little bit more water in my brush. More of that umber. Do the same thing over here. Smooth this out a little bit with your finger like that. And then lastly, I'm going to get some sepia by itself and darken some of these areas. Like that. Over here, get a little bit of that color. And these dry areas also give a little bit of texture. All in the direction of the perspective, like that. I think what I need them to do is darken some of the greenery in the distance. But I'm going to do it with the sepia and the sea green and ultramarine blue. Not too much, just give it a little bit more dimension. There we are, that's better. More ultramarine blue to cool it down. Maybe we just add just another dimension to this tree area like that, that's better. Yeah, that looks much better. There. Also, I'm going to bring a little bit of the green to this area too. There. Okay. Lastly, here I'm going to take a smaller brush and ultramarine blue, some the brown matter, and this fence here. That. And I think I'm going to take some flat brush and remove some of this color to get a little bit more difference, make these walls a little lighter because of the amount of overcast light in the sky. Yeah, that's much better. Same thing here. Yeah, that's much better. See, I'm gonna remove this whites there. Okay, so now that looks much better. And the painting is pretty much finished, so I'm gonna remove the tape. I'm gonna put this on a dark board, so you will be able to appreciate the difference, the contrast, and everything else, as opposed to this kind of messy watercolor splattered board that I use. This top is always tarred. Here comes the dark board. I'll put this there. Bring it a little bit. I'm going to minimize it. And there it is. Impending storm at the farm. You saw how dark I applied the colors on the sky. And I said it's going to dry much lighter. I wish I would have done it even a little darker, but this is fine. This is just fine. And that's how you do a stormy sky. And everything else, all the colors will reflect the colors that are in the sky. Because of the overcast nature of a stormy sky, overcast color and light, everything else is kind of dull. There's no shadows. It's not a sunny day, so everything has that kind of moody type effect. I hope you enjoyed watching this video, enjoy my painting, and please visit my website at AA Fine Arts, where you will see information about my virtual classes and a selection of my paintings and prints. Until next time.